What's up guys, welcome to Daily Refinement. Today's video I'm going to go over every single eBay or reseller tax related question that I can think of. I'm not a professional when it comes to taxes and I have lots of resources for that, but I've actually made a blog post at dailyrefinement.com/blog/reseller taxes that hosts all this information. Also, this video will be timestamped, so you can skip ahead to the question that you're looking for. And I also have a playlist with all these tax questions in it to help you guys along your way. And this should be more than enough to get you started with reselling and all the numbers. It may seem super overwhelming at first, but honestly, it's not that complicated. And I'm going to go over step by step how you can accomplish all your tax and bookkeeping in this video. So please smash the like button, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys inside. So guys, first question is going to be, what do I need to actually keep track? Do I need a spreadsheet? Do I need a ledger? Do I need a journal? What do I actually need? So let's keep it really simple. What you need is to open a separate bank account. This is free. So I recommend you open a bank account and put as much money as you feel comfortable putting in there for your resale business. And then also you need a receipt book. So I have one in my list of reseller supplies at bit.ly/reseller supplies. That'll go to my Amazon store. Inside there, search for a receipt book. And it's just a simple transaction receipt that keeps track of something that you buy in cash. So in the beginning, maybe fill out one of these, even if you buy something with a credit card, just so that you're aware of all the different expenses associated with reselling. So first thing that you need, separate bank account. Use the debit card that comes with that to make purchases in the beginning, and a simple receipt book to keep track of things that you pay for in cash. Now, when the IRS asks you to verify what those cash purchases are for, essentially what they're going to do is look at the ATM cash withdrawal. So let's say you withdrew $100 and then you went out to a garage sale, flea market, thrift store, whatever, paid for something in cash. That receipt that you have is what they're going to use to validate that transaction and that withdrawal to see if that matches up. It's as simple as it gets. So you don't need anything fancy. You actually don't need any spreadsheets. If you only make purchases with that debit card, and when you use cash, you use this receipt book and you give this to a professional, a CPA or an accountant, they will be able to do your taxes for you. It's pretty straightforward. The bank account will show how much money came in from eBay or Amazon or Mercari, Poshmark. It'll show the receipts, how much money went in. That's what they're going to report to the IRS is how much income that you made. And it's your job to subtract all of the different expenses out of that. And the amount left in your bank account is essentially what you pay taxes on. That's sort of how reseller bookkeeping and taxes work. Now, this video is sponsored by Mark's tax course. So as you guys know, my friend Mark, Not Your Dad's CPA, he has a course on bookkeeping and accounting. So those two courses are on my write-up at my reseller blog that we'll put again here or in the description below. So you can check out that blog post, check out Mark's two courses, and he goes over all these different topics that we cover today in greater length and explains all of it. You can ask him. He's a tax pro and a reseller. And this is something I found pretty astonishing. He's done over 1,000 reseller tax returns in the last couple of years. That's a lot. It's more than one a day. So not only is he a reseller, files his own taxes as a reseller, he also does tax returns for literally thousands of resellers. So that's one resource. Also, as you guys know, I run a reseller partnership with my colleague Tech and Sports where we show people how to run an online store. Inside our group, Cheryl Miller is our accountant. So inside our group, we have an accountant that helps people with any questions. So if you guys have more questions beyond what's in this video, which I'm sure you will, tag her. And she also has a spreadsheet that you can buy. It's very inexpensive, where you enter in everything and it will keep track for you. And again, this is just extra. You don't actually need that spreadsheet, but in the beginning, I recommend you do line by line and try to figure out exactly how much money are you making as a reseller, because eventually you're going to want to pour on the gas and grow your business. And if you don't know your numbers, then I don't recommend doing that. So if you understand how much money you're making on one item, then you can do the same thing 100,000 or 1,000,000 times. You just have to understand it one time. So the first thing you need to do is have the bank account, receipt book, and understand how it works on a single transaction. Number two is, should I hire a professional or do taxes myself? Now, you can definitely sign up for a service like TurboTax, and it will sort of guesstimate what kind of deductions you have for your home business. But I'm not a professional, so I recommend getting a tax professional, at least for the first year. Get a CPA or a tax accountant and reach out to them and see if they have resources to help you set up your bookkeeping and your accounting right the first time. So I recommend hiring a professional, just like hiring a plumber at your house. You could do it yourself, watch a couple YouTube videos and then start taking stuff apart, but you can end up with a giant mess if you don't properly do it. So I think it's exactly the same as hiring a plumber or an electrician. If you don't want to set your house on fire or flood your entire house, you can just pay someone a few $100s for a couple of hours of time and solve the problem. You can watch them if you're really curious how it works, or you can watch the YouTube videos and hire a plumber or electrician, but I recommend hiring a professional in the beginning, but you can totally do it yourself. I personally do my own tax return, but not at first. In the beginning, I did hire a pro. And at this point, I actually still hire someone to look over it. I do it myself, but I still hire someone to double check. What's the difference between bookkeeper, accountant, tax preparer, or CPA, or enrolled agent? These are different types of terms that tax professionals use depending on what kind of education and credentials they have. So make sure that when you're picking an accountant, maybe ask them what their credentials are, how long they've been doing it. Make sure that they have experience with online sales. Since we're in the online sale industry, more and more accountants have experience with what I call a quilted income, where you put together a little bit of DoorDash, a little bit of Uber Eats, a little bit of Uber, a little bit of real estate property income, and maybe you have a part-time job at Starbucks. More and more, that's becoming a normal thing. So make sure that you have an accountant that has the proper experience to do the best job with you and find the most deductions. Why do we have to pay taxes when we resell? Now, this is a pretty common question because people think, I've already purchased this item. When I resell it, why do I owe tax on something I already paid tax for in the first place? Now, there's a couple of differentiators here. One is the difference between income tax and sales tax. When you buy an item, depending on what state you live in, the state assesses a tax that they collect on that sale. Income tax is what you pay on the income you earn. So technically, if you sell something even for $1, you actually owe taxes on that. That's just the system that we live in. But luckily, the system that we live in also has ways to deduct expenses out. So typically, when you sell something that you already own, you don't owe tax on it because the cost that you paid for it is above the cost that you paid for it, plus the expenses to fulfill that sale are typically more than what you paid for it. So you didn't earn a profit if you take the proper deductions. Now, again, that's really important. And again, this is not a tax channel, so don't sue me. But when you are selling your own personal items, that's a little bit different than selling items as a business for profit. So you guys know on my channel, I talk a lot about the difference between being a hobby and just doing things for fun and being a professional where you actually sell things for a profit. And I also want to point out in Mark's course, he actually goes over how some hobby income is taxable and you can't take the deductions. So think about how crazy that is. You earn income from, let's say you bake a pie with your friends, for your friend, you charge your friend $30 for the cake. And because you're not set up properly, you can't take all the deductions like home office deduction, all that stuff. So you actually may not be able to deduct all the expenses incurred, minus like, I think, I'm not a tax professional, but I believe that the cost of making the cake is probably always deductible. But again, ask a tax professional. But most of us listening to this channel are doing this as a business and not for fun, not for a hobby. You want to earn a profit. That's the main differentiator. So somebody brought up, what if I'm at a garage sale? Do I need to charge sales tax? And again, that's typically for something done for a business purpose, not just a personal flip. So a little bit different. If you have the garage sale running 365 days a year and that's the way that you earn money, you probably should collect and remit sales tax. Now, sales tax, remember, most of the platforms that we sell on collect and remit the sales tax for you. But I still recommend that you file a 0% sales tax on your tax certificate, because a lot of resellers have tax certificates where you can end up buying items without tax. So if you buy something without tax, you're exempt. That's tax exemption. But the state's going to want to know, you bought $500 worth of stuff tax-free. When you sold it, how much sales tax did you collect and remit? That's going to be what the state expects. So a normal business that buys something for $500 will sell for $1,000. If you have a 10% tax return or tax rate in your state, you owe your state $100. Now, if you sell on eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, Amazon, they'll probably collect that $100 for you and send it to the company or send it to the government. But again, you're responsible for sales tax, and I do recommend that you file a 0 tax owed, because the companies that you sell on typically remit for you. Now, I'll give you another example. For me on my own website, I have to do it on my own if I collect it not using one of the payment processors that does it for me. So it's interesting. Depending on how you sell things, either you do it or somebody else does it or another platform does it, but somebody's got to do it. If I don't make much money, do I still owe taxes? And the answer is yes. If you make $1 profit, you make 1 penny profit, you actually still owe tax on that because it's a profit. So you owe tax on all of it. I know it might seem unfair, but it's also unfair that you can deduct all your business expenses. And a lot of small businesses actually are pretty close to just breaking even. So it's a tax haven for a lot of people owning a small business because they get a percentage write-off on a lot of different things that they do. So it's important to understand, yes, you owe taxes, but then you also have abilities to reduce your tax burden. And you don't have that at a regular job. You don't get to deduct your commute. You don't get to deduct home office. Usually not, because those are built differently. If you go to somebody else's workplace and do work, it's not the same as you doing work at home at your own desk that you paid for in your living room. Do I have a hobby or business? Now, the main differentiator is, are you doing it for fun or are you doing it to earn a profit? It's pretty straightforward. Most people listening right now are doing this as a business. So congratulations, you own your own business as soon as you sell one item. And this is going to bring us into the next question, which is, how should I set up my business? Should I be a sole proprietorship? Should I be a partnership? Should I be a corporation? How should I organize my company? So by default, guys, everyone is a sole proprietor. So you do not need to set up a separate corporation or partnership or any type of business structure. You can just file under your normal Social Security number. So whatever your number is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you file under that as your income. There's a separate form. And again, this is why you'd want to talk to a professional in the beginning to make sure that you're filing this properly. So you're going to essentially file as a sole proprietorship as a default. And if you decide to go through a corporation, I don't know the exact number where it starts to make sense, but essentially you're paying self-employment tax when you are a sole proprietor. And that's around 18%. Don't quote me, I'm not a CPA, but there's a self-employment tax. And part of that is you're paying for the full amount of Social Security. So again, I'm not going to go over exactly what self-employment tax is because I'm not an accountant, but you're responsible for self-employment tax. But when you work for somebody else, they are responsible for at least half. I think that's how it works. So the way that I'm set up, because a lot of people are curious how my company is set up, is I work for Daily Refinement Inc. It's my own company, but I work for it. It's a corporation. So I pay myself a salary, and that is taxed differently than the amount at the end of the year that I take as a dividend. So if I earn a profit. So whatever my salary is, if there's money left over, that money left over is taxed differently. So my salary is based on a reasonable amount per listing, and I count that as $2. I think $2 is very reasonable to execute a living. And I think if the IRS came here and looked at how much I'm doing, I can do at least 10 an hour. So that's a minimum of $20 an hour. That's how I came up with that number of at least $2. So personally, I'm trying to sell 50,000 items per year. So I put my income salary for my company at around 100,000. That's how that is organized, and that's how it's set up. If you're a corporation, it might make sense if you're earning enough that you want to reduce that self-employment tax. So you're kind of working for your company and you're an owner of the company. If that makes sense, it's a little bit more complicated, and again, not necessary for 99% of resellers. Does my business location matter? I personally think that your business location does matter, because wherever you are conducting business is probably where you should remit and send sales tax. So I don't think it's reasonable for me to set up my company in Montana, because I don't live in Montana. I don't have stuff in Montana. I don't do anything in Montana. So I recommend that you do your business location where you live. Next is, how does selling on multiple platforms affect me? So as you guys know, some people throw some hate on me because I don't want to sell on multiple platforms anymore. I just want to pick one. And the reason is because it kind of complicates the tax recording. Because when I was on Poshmark, Mercari, eBay, Amazon, essentially I get 4 different tax forms that I need to fill out, and I need to report all 4 different incomes. It's already difficult and complicated enough to just list one platform. And I'm not in the business of collecting as many 1099s as possible. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. In fact, I was talking to my videographer about how I can make my life as complicated as possible. And it would be me having 9 different stores on 9 different platforms and only earning a small amount of money per platform. That would be infuriating, going over all those tax returns at the beginning of the year. So again, I don't recommend you list on more than one platform, but if you do, it just makes for a little bit more bookkeeping and accounting and a little bit more on the reporting side. You've got to report all the different kinds of income. So again, you kind of want to make as much money in as few different opportunities as possible. I understand they say, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but maybe don't put 20 eggs in 20 different baskets. That's kind of difficult. We have 24 hours in the day. I think it would be foolish to put it in 24 different buckets. So just pick a few. What is bookkeeping and how do I do it? Essentially, bookkeeping is record keeping. So each time a transaction happens where you buy something or sell something, bookkeeping is just keeping track. That's how I look at it. And again, I'm not a professional. There's people who literally have the job of just bookkeeper. They're just keeping track. And then there's the role of accountant, who's essentially, in my opinion, looking for the way to maximize your tax deductions so you owe the least amount of tax. One person keeps track, one person maximizes your deduction. That's how I look at it. What is inventory and how do I keep track of it? So this is a pretty common question, and I would have you guys Google search the difference between cash accounting and accrual accounting. So most resellers, I recommend cash accounting, where you assess the cost of goods sold right when you buy the item. The other way would be the accrual accounting, where you count the cost of goods sold when the item actually sells. So that's a bit more complicated. You have to pick one or the other. And I think, I'm not an accountant, but I think you can only switch one time. So I recommend you pick cash accounting, but talk to your tax professional first. And the way the inventory is deducted is that it's an expense. So if you buy something for 20 and sell it for 10, you're going to end up taking a loss. But if you buy something for 10 and sell for 100, you end up making a profit. But the inventory cost is just that $10. It's always the same. What are some common deductions that I should look for? So again, this is going to depend on your business, but I recommend home office deduction. I recommend a percentage of your internet, electricity, phone bill, maybe the part that you use for your business. I recommend maybe some shipping supplies. I recommend all shipping that you pay to USPS, Post Office, or FedEx, all the marketing fees you pay to eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, all those platform fees. All those different things are tax deductible. And again, this is why you would want to talk to a tax professional, because they can give you every single deduction that they can think of, and that's literally their job, to reduce your tax burden. My taxes are a mess. How do I deal with it? So I recommend you just start over. And I think that one main theme on my channel is that the fastest way to learn something is to start all the way back at the bottom of the mountain. Most people don't want to do that. They feel like they have enough experience, that they have life experience. And I was saying that the older you are, typically the less likely you want to be to start over. Like if you tell somebody who's 64 years old, you have to go all the way back to the beginning and learn this, it's not going to be something they want to hear necessarily, unless you are a lifetime learner and you're okay going back to the beginning and starting over. But even me personally, I consider going back and starting over not beneath me anymore. I think it's how you do it. When I was installing the dimmer switch at my house, I was telling people that if I installed the wires incorrectly, I could actually start a fire. So I think it's important to manually take your time and learn all the different steps, even though it feels like starting over, because it is. So definitely take your time as you're doing this. If your taxes are a mess, just start over and keep good records moving forward. With a little extra time each day, you can go back and adjust your previous issues. And the only thing you can do is be more organized in the future and work on your mess one transaction at a time. Is the IRS out to get me? And how likely am I to be audited? So again, I'm not a CPA and I've never seen anybody get audited from reselling, but it can happen. And what they're looking for, and I'll tell you, this is because with some experience in being suspended on eBay, I think what happened is that I was audited, right? So essentially somebody went through my sales and said, wow, this person is doing a lot of sales. We need to do more investigation. And there were periods where I had more sales than less. So I went from selling $2,000 a day to like $6,000 a day. And that's a pretty dramatic change. So that is what causes people to get audited. So When you are doing your accounting and your bookkeeping, you want to be as consistent as possible. If you're trying to avoid being audited, then you wouldn't all of a sudden make $1 million in one day and then go back to making $200 a day. So being audited is extremely unlikely. The IRS is not out to get you. And in the case that you do get audited, it hasn't happened to me, but it's not actually that difficult because all the money is traceable, right? You have a bank account. You can see what's coming out of the bank account and you can see what's going into the bank account. So from my experience, I'm looking at all these different ways people are trying to get out of paying taxes. It's actually pretty straightforward and it's part of just living in the United States. So I recommend that you just work with the IRS. I don't feel like the IRS is out to get me. And I live in California where I have the highest tax rate, I think. Okay, what if I don't have any receipts or records? That's okay, but moving forward, you need to have receipts and records. Otherwise, you won't be able to verify the purchase. So what the IRS is trying to do is prove that you spent this much money on this thing. So you just need those records and receipts to help you build your case. So I recommend you keep your tax records forever, but some people say 7 to 10 years. It's up to you to determine how much it is. You could also email every single record to yourself or use an online receipt holder that holds all the information. How do I separate business from personal? So for me personally, I separate business and personal by just using 2 different credit cards. My Apple Pay is only set up for personal, and I use a credit card each time on my business purchases so I can keep track, and I'm also aware of what I'm swiping on. I actually probably don't recommend using Apple Pay or because it's so easy to spend money without knowing what it actually is. If you can get into the habit of paying cash, writing a check, using a debit card, you can see the balances go down, go up, go down, go up. Versus a credit card, you don't really get to feel that until the end of the month. And most people don't have a grasp of is their monthly net worth going up. So I definitely recommend doing things as manual or analog as possible. Start with cash, then a check, then a credit card. Keeping it business and personal is pretty straightforward. I have 2 credit cards on my wallet. One's personal, one's business. Pretty straightforward. What is an easy way to keep track of my business numbers? Should I use a spreadsheet? I think so. In the beginning, you should track all the different expenses. There's about 9 different fees associated with selling on eBay. So it's important to understand what all 9 of those are. So I would recommend Google Docs or Excel. Google Docs is free. So I recommend opening up a sheet and just breaking it down one item by one. I'm also kind of digging the Common Core way they teach math in elementary schools now, where they try to show people 3 carats times 4 carats is 12 carats. So it's 3 sets of 4 carats. They're trying to like visually show kids how math works versus when I grew up, it was memorization. 3 times 4, 12. 4 times 9, 36. I know all my math tables from memorization, but I was never explained to me that 3 carats times 4 carats is 12 carats. And you literally look at 4 groups of 3 carats. That's a good way to visualize. That's why I recommend using a spreadsheet, because you can adjust one number up or down and see how it affects the final number. So really, really important to keep track, have a basic understanding of algebra and how math works. How do I not get overwhelmed? This is a big one. It can seem overwhelming, and that's why I recommend you just start small. Start with 1 item, 5 items, 10 items, understand, and then grow. Most people are just growing nonstop and they don't really stop to figure out what's going on, and that's how you get overwhelmed. Imagine like you are married right now and every single week you take on a new spouse, 2 spouses, 3 spouses, 4 spouses. It would stack up. You would start forgetting things. You would start falling through on your commitments and promises. It'd be very expensive to figure out what happened to a previous relationship. So if you think of every single transaction as a relationship, you would definitely take your time and complete them, have closure on all of them before moving on to the next one. What if I have employees or contractors? This is important. So if you are an employer, so you actually hire your employees, then you are responsible for collecting some tax from them, right? So they fill out their form. A W-2 employee is a little bit different. The employer has a lot more responsibility. On a 1099 route, you're sending somebody the full amount that you pay them, and they are handling taxes on their own. So from my experience, I've had much better luck working with W-2 employees. It's more stable. There's more protection for the employer, more protection for the employee. It's better. People are more reliable because they have more security. 1099 is challenging because it's sort of work when you can, when you want, how you want to do it. That's how eBay pays us, right? eBay pays us however much we want to work. They don't say you have to work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and load items in and ship. They don't tell you any of that. You just do whatever you can. They pay you whatever it amounts to. So it's really important to understand working as a contractor is what we do also, but we're also employing ourselves trying to make an income. So that's why, like, I don't really care about whether or not it's fun, because I'm doing this to make a living. I want to know what my hours are, how many resources I need to accomplish it. I want to make it consistent. So the fun part comes from after the paycheck is in my bank account. Then I can go have fun. This actual part may sound a bit boring, but it's honestly, if you can look at it like a relationship and you're nurturing it and understanding what it needs, and it doesn't have to be boring. Just some people were never taught this stuff, how important it is to balance a checkbook, have a budget, understand how your finances work in your business. I was never taught that. I had to learn it on my own. So take the time to really understand how this is going to work. I highly recommend you take both Mark's bookkeeping course and his accounting course if you want to get like a crash course on how this works. If you're looking for the long-term route, then you can definitely join our Patreon group, patreon.com/the Podcast. In there, you can tag Cheryl Miller, who's our accountant, or you can ask me or anybody else in the group how to approach some specific tax question, and we'll do the best we can or point you to a professional resource, to somebody that can actually answer legally. What you're listening right now is just my own personal experience, and the questions that I pulled today were the most commonly asked questions. So if you guys have any more questions that weren't covered, please email me at chrissdailyrefinement.com or comment below. I read every single comment. If you want a more detailed response, I would email me, but you can throw it in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer those. So I appreciate you guys. Until next time, make progress daily.